Well, welcome back to church. And thank you for allowing me to come back. That's a good thing from my perspective. And it's awfully good to be with you. So it's good to be here. Let me start by reading from 1 Chronicles 16. This is the prayer of David as he brings the ark to up to Jerusalem. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Proclaim his salvation day after day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among all peoples. For great is the Lord and most worthy of praise, to be feared above all gods. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord, Yahweh, I am, made the heavens. Amen? Amen. Well, so we're here today to talk about Hardesty in Haiti, or how I spent my summer vacation in a tropical paradise. And really, in a lot of ways, Haiti is a tropical paradise, except for the pollution, rampant poverty and disease, and who knows what else going on there. I told someone the other day, it's like a tropical paradise as run by the devil. But it's quite a place. So, the next slide, let's see if we can figure out exactly where Haiti is. It's a Caribbean island, and it's right there underneath the blue arrow. Sticking down from the top, you see Florida, and that kind of bumps toward Cuba, and then off the east end of Cuba is an island called Hispaniola, which is the next slide. Yeah, there we are. And half of it is the Dominican Republic, and half of it is Haiti. And what happened was, a long time ago, I guess we can just stay right there. The Spanish settled half the island, and the French settled the other half of the island, and they fought about it until they decided they were just going to cut it down the middle. And so that's Haiti. That's kind of highlighted in the... Hey, is this thing on? I didn't turn it on. Did you turn it on? Yeah, well, let's turn it on. Might as well, right? It is running. Come on. Hello, John. Okay, so that's Haiti. Is the part in kind of the brown there. Port-au-Prince is marked with the red arrow or the red circle, and then just west of that is an area called Léogâne, and that is what the arrow is pointing at. Now the next slide, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see it. So I'm going to come over here and point things out, okay? We should have a ladder, but we don't.
Laser pointer.
What's that?
Laser pointer.
Laser pointer would be fabulous. Do you have one? Oh.
Built in. Hey, nothing but the best.
We are seriously teching here. So, as we just pointed out, right there is Port-au-Prince. And you see this little river here. I have no idea what the name of the river is, but I do know that I was living about 10 minutes east of the river, and I was working about 5 minutes west of the river. So, if you ever look at Haiti and look at it on a map, you find that little river, and you go like, hey, I know somebody that spent a week right around there. And it was a very good week. God was good to us. And good evening. It was a good week, and it was time well spent. The next slide is called the event. Why were we there? January 12th, there was a 7.0 earthquake. It was centered at Léogâne, which is the area that I just pointed out to you. 230,000 people were killed. 300,000 were injured. 1 million were left homeless. 3 million were affected one way or another. And between 250 and 300,000 buildings were destroyed. That's a lot of homes, and that's a lot of places people go to work. The result is that there was a whole bunch of devastation, rubble, all sorts of problems. The picture there is actually of the presidential palace, which is bigger than our White House. And you may have seen it on the news. Big fancy place it used to be. Now it looks like somebody took a wedding cake and dropped it from about 4 feet. Well, what do you do about such a thing? Well, apart from looking at buildings that are now standing at odd angles, it takes a worldwide response to try to deal with a problem of this magnitude. The Red Cross raised over $7 million in one day for this. Foreign nations, beginning with the Dominican Republic right next door, but many other nations and the United Nations have sent relief. The U.S. Navy runs around in that area, and within the first week they had made 336 airdrops, delivering over 32,000 gallons of water, over 500,000 bottles of water, over 100,000 meals, and 9,000 pounds of medical supplies just in that first week as kind of a first response to it. And so that was your tax dollars at work. And it's a good cause. We gripe about paying taxes, but it was not a bad thing. In addition to that, the Southern Baptists have also become very active there. Southern Baptists have 90,000 trained disaster relief workers across the country. Now that's a pretty good workforce, and you see the picture here of Don Nesbitt, who's one of our brothers from Mountain Home. And we have sent volunteers to all sorts of places, including those that are listed there. As I recall, the guy in a sling was down in Florida about 5 years ago, right? A little over 5, I guess, as part of Disaster Relief Ministries. And there's the logo there, and you can see it on the back of my T-shirt here. I did wash this T-shirt. It stank badly when it arrived home. But you can see on the logo that it's a cross of two things. There's the wheat and there is a fish. And the wheat represents taking care of people's physical needs. And the fish, or the ichthus, represents sharing Christ to meet their spiritual needs as we go through the process. And some of them are very, very localized. For example, we sent a team down to the earthquake that was in Elko a few years ago. And others take place on a scale that captures the attention of the world. So I went down with your help to see what I could do to help. We see a picture of your team. And you're like, well, David, you're the only one of these people that we know. But this slide and the next slide are 9 people from Utah and Idaho, 6 from Idaho and 3 from Utah. And we all went down together. And I say they're your team because this is your cooperative program, Money at Work. Every week we collect offerings, and every week we divvy it up for the offerings for different purposes. And a portion of that we send to a common pot called the Cooperative Program so that Southern Baptists can work together to do all sorts of things, primarily missions. And one of the missions that we are interested in is disaster relief. And so this is your team. Cooperative funds paid for half of my airfare. And that was $800, so $400 right there. As well as the money that the church donated to me directly. And so that was good. Now, on top of that, on top of the fact that you gave money, what else did you give for this team? Prayers. And it was so good to see so many of your names on our Facebook prayer list. And I know that Colette was sending out notifications to people. And it was so good to know that you were back here praying for us. In fact, we were told over the course of the week by someone who has seen a lot of teams that they had never seen a team that worked together with as good a spirit as the 9 of us did. And it wasn't just because we're all nice, smiling people, although we may be, but it was because we were prayed for and God was working out His kindnesses in our lives. So thank you very much. Very briefly, you've got, back the other way, back the other way. There we go. We have Bert and Blaine and Bob and Angie and, hold on, I forgot this guy. And we've got Cricket and Don and Russell and me. And I'm actually wearing a yellow shirt, but I also had my raincoat on, so there. Okay, let's keep going. Enough of these faces. So we went from the USA to Port-au-Prince. The first picture over here, you see the very, very luxurious Dallas-Fort Worth Airport with, over here, there's Corky's Barbecue. And we had like 27 different restaurants we could eat in, every one of which looked great. And then next to it is the Port-au-Prince Airport, which looks like a high school parking lot pretty much. And when we went in, I went in and it was kind of like being in a bus depot. That's about how fancy it was. But that's okay. We weren't there for the luxury. Rather, we were there as we left the airport to work with the Haitians. This is kind of our first view of Haiti when we came out of the airport, and you can see the chaos that's going on here. There is traffic everywhere. There are people everywhere. An enormous amount of people and congestion going on. And of course, with all of that, you also have buildings that are sort of stacked on top of each other. And it's hard to see, but some of these buildings are pretty well broken up. And you have people who are living out here in the streets, and not a joyful experience. Next slide shows us two things. One is up here we have some government office buildings that are right next to that presidential palace. And here is the cathedral with the two towers that go all the way up to here that aren't there anymore. All there is to it. So very difficult situation, and they needed as much help as they get. The next picture shows it shows a bulldog, but more than that, this is just a house that got destroyed, and this is a water truck, and because water has to be delivered because there is no city water system operating right now. So as we drove through town, we eventually ended up at what's called the Florida House. And it's called the Florida House because it is owned by the Florida Southern Baptist Convention. And it is a major staging area. It's got room for probably 30 volunteers at one time in dorm-style rooms. And so if you ever go overseas and you go to a guest house, it'll probably look something like this. It'll have dorm rooms, and it'll have kind of like barracks rooms, and then it'll have some wide open meeting areas. This is Dale Hansen, who is the incident coordinator. That means that he's the guy that all the groups coordinate with, and then he goes and coordinates with other groups to tie everything together. He's the man in charge on the ground right now. And so that's sort of what Florida House looked like. You can see that Florida House is a place that has no cell coverage. And there we all were, and I suddenly realized I had about 5 people in the yard trying to make their phones work, and I figured I had to take a picture of it. But that's why my wife got one call from me all week, because you just can't get it. We keep going, and here's a tap-tap. A hippie mobile, thank you very much. It's happens to be a Nissan, I believe. But this is a taxi, and what you do is you build a bench along each side of the bed, either cover it or not. As the case may be, this is a very fancy one. It's actually even got a luggage rack up on top, and then you fit in however many people you can fit inside it. And as you're driving along, and you are a tap-tap driver, somebody will just wave you down, and you will stick as many people in there as you can. And at the end of their ride, whenever they've gotten where they're going, they just tap on the back window, you stop, they throw some money through, and on you go. So on that ride back from the airport, we had all 9 of us in a tap-tap, plus a translator. I was glad that I was the person sitting on the outside corner right over here, because it looked pretty hot and sweaty in there. Sure, I could have gotten killed, but that was better. And